Good evening, everyone. It's on or about 6:30, and I will call this meeting to order. Normally, I would open our planning meetings with a recognition of the land and our treaty acknowledgement and reconciliation process. I didn't bring those notes tonight. We do, of course, recognize that we are meeting on lands that have been inhabited by Indigenous people from the beginning. But today we learned also that Councillor Pat Culhane passed away last night suddenly. I have extended our sympathies to Mayor Panchuk and Belleville City Council and the people of Belleville and the Culhane family on council's behalf. And just in discussion with Councillor Anderson before the meeting, we will lower the flags to half-mast when we find out what the arrangements are for Councillor Culhane. So I just wanted to acknowledge Pat's passing. Pat was incredibly involved in not just her ward, but in the city in general, having also run for mayor of the city of Belleville back in 2014. So I just wanted to acknowledge Pat's passing. We'll move on to the approval of our agenda for this evening, and I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council approve the November 9th, 2020 planning meeting agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Before we move on, I will acknowledge also that Deputy Mayor Vink is joining us electronically this evening. I won't give away too much information, Deputy Mayor, but she's been under the weather for the last couple of days, and I understand that you are COVID-free, but felt it was best not to join us this evening. But we're glad you're here virtually. Thank you for joining us by Zoom. And members of council, ask if you have any declarations of pecuniary interest, and if so, please state the general nature thereof. There are none noted. We have one delegation this evening. It's Mary Jo Morrison from Harbour Street to address the drafting of the recommendations for short-term accommodation regulations in the municipality of Brighton. Mary Jo, please come on up. Okay. If you push the purple button in front of you, it will activate your microphone. There you go.
Brilliant. Thank you. And thank you to everyone for the opportunity to speak to council and staff regarding short-term accommodations. Short-term accommodations do play a role in the economic development of Brighton. And it's the goal, I believe, of these planning decisions and discussions to find a balance between the need to meet the demands for STAs, as well as to protect the neighboring residents and maintain their quality of life. I have had this misfortune to now live next to an Airbnb in Brighton, which began operating in the spring of this year. The fact that this commercial operation is being allowed to operate in an R1 zone is a betrayal of trust to anyone who's bought a home in a residential area, and only to find out the municipality is not enforcing the current regulations. I've spoken with some of you regarding the horror show we are forced to endure in our homes. And the adverse effects on our lives are both environmental, the noise, trespass, parking, the revolving door of transients, as well as physical and emotional stresses and strains. Since submitting the handout last week that you have, I've learned that some amendments to the bylaws regarding the occupancy of STAs have been passed. The bylaws reference STAs, but I couldn't find where they were defined. And it's my hope that the comments and observations that are made this evening will be taken into consideration when drafting further regulations regarding the STAs. There are 5 areas that I'd like to touch on with you this evening. The first is the definition of the STAs. I believe they should include noting that the properties are not owner occupied, nor is it the principal residence of the owner. The reason for this is that it acknowledges that there's no overseeing of the conduct of the guests, as is the case of a bed and breakfast or a boarding house. B, I believe that it should include that it is rented out with the intention of financial gain for a portion of a period of less than 30 days. The rationale for this is that it is a commercial venture and allows us to tax them and license accordingly. And C, it is not a motel, a hotel, or an inn. These businesses already operate under existing regulations and meet licensing requirements. The second point I'd like to address with you tonight is that of permitted use in zoned areas. Through the process of the inquiry, Council will be passing bylaws that address how and where the STAs fit into our community. While there are many different zoning usage options, the ones that best suit tonight's discussion are residential and commercially zoned areas. And we already have several different zoning areas that fit closely with the nature of STAs. We also have different zoned areas which do not even remotely accommodate STAs, and those are specifically R1 and R2 zones. These zoned areas must be respected and protected. To allow usage in an R1 or R2 area must require a variance which allows for community input and response to the request. This process would be in keeping with current practices regarding the changes to usage within a zone. Licensing, number 3. Licenses, once granted, should be renewed either annually or biannually. In this way, the compliance with regulations can be ensured as violations can be recorded, and if the STA exceeds a set number of violations, the license could be revoked. The license should be attached to the owner, not the property. And should the property be sold, the new owners will have to apply for the license so that the municipality will be better able to track the ownership and the operation of the STAs as they come into the community. Most importantly, there should be no grandfathering of existing STAs. To allow STAs to grandfather in areas where they do not conform to bylaws is to condone their current illegal activity. Point number 4 deals with regulations. Council and staff have discussed many regulations, noise, parking, garbage. The only one I would like to address tonight to council and to staff deals with occupancy. Now, I understand this has been addressed by the bylaw for property standards, which was amended on the 2nd of November. So one concern now addresses the defining of occupancy. The new bylaw states that occupancy shall not exceed a total number based upon 2 persons per bedroom plus 2. Furthermore, occupant is defined as any person over the age of 18 in possession of the property. Since it is our goal to balance the need for STAs with the well-being of our residents, we need to acknowledge that one of the most significant problems surrounding the issue is that of noise and parties. So do the occupancy rates in this new bylaw include visitors who are invited by the renters to the Airbnb? Guest numbers easily double within hours when friends are invited to stop by. When drafting recommendations, I urge council to consider that one size fits all regarding occupancy should not necessarily be used. A large home in a rural area provides an entirely different rental experience than a small cottage in a residential area with neighbors 4 feet away when properties are built right to the side yards. Instead, occupancy rates could be tied perhaps on a scale to the square footage of the lot, square footage of the building, and proximity to neighbors. The scale doesn't need to be complex or convoluted or difficult to draft or enforce. But when drafting the recommendations, there must be acknowledged that a party on a small lot with minimum side yards imposes a much greater nuisance than a party on a lot of the same size where there's nobody nearby. And finally, violations and enforcement. One owner reported to me that they expected to make over $70,000 renting in less than 1 year. This was, I believe, a 7 to 8 month projection. Okay. And this was only, as I say, for 8 months. There's no complaint here. I have no complaint with people making money, investing, earning. That's not my issue. That's not the issue here. But however, the statement indicates, what this indicates is that Airbnbs are extremely profitable. And so any fines must be a deterrent. They must serve as an incentive for the owner to follow the regulations that we pass. Fines should be a warning that compliance is expected, and multiple infractions should result in the revocation of a license. The need for short-term accommodation exists. However, legitimate businesses, inns, motels, they're now at a disadvantage because they are required to license, abide by building codes, health regulations, fire regulations. They pay taxes accordingly. STA owners don't have to meet any of these regulations, nor do they pay the appropriate taxes or fees. This puts an unfair burden on current or future legitimate owners of businesses. This is not an environment that encourages businesses to come to our community. My thanks to each of you for your efforts in making our municipality a better place to live. I think yours is a thankless job. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, and I look forward to my continued discussions with you as we move forward on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. And I will open up the floor to members of council just if they have any questions of clarification. And it was a thankless job until you came and thanked us. So thank you for that. Members of council, do you have any questions of the delegate? Councillor Tadman.
I'd like to make a statement first, Mayor, before I ask my question, in that I got a call from you when you were extremely upset, and I went immediately, didn't know that your husband had called Mr. Bateman, Councillor Bateman, and so I was there first, and then he showed up. But the stress these people are under is so totally unfair. When I got home, I thought about the whole area. My aunt actually lived in your house.
No way.
Yeah,
Okay,
she owned it a long time ago. But beside that, I know the area so well, and everybody is, plugged
Close.
together in his.
We are close.
And for that to be in that kind of an area just makes no sense whatsoever to me. And because the people that have invested there, I don't blame them. If they're making 70,000, I wish I had a cottage. But my question also is, are you aware, because people are coming and going all the time, are you aware that each time they leave, is that sanitized? Because right now with COVID would be a big worry for me. And the other thing I'll add to that, and then you can respond to both, is if the rest of councillors, mayor and deputy mayor had seen the situation, I know that they wouldn't be pleased. There's an addition on the place that should not be there. It was an old shed converted into extra sleeping space right close to the water, which is illegal. So my other question is, has that place been inspected by the fire chief or his deputy? You don't know, maybe?
Okay, so this is new to me, so I'm writing everything down.
Okay.
So first of all, you asked me about cleaning.
I'll just caution, if you don't know the answer.
Oh, that's exactly where I
Okay.
was going. As far as COVID cleaning is concerned, I would hate this to be a court of law. But as you know, I live right on top of them. And we have observed that guests leave anywhere from 10 to 11 a.m. We have observed the owners coming in and cleaning, and we have observed them leave and new guests come in at 4, anywhere from 3 to 5 p.m. That is what I have observed. I have not gone into the house. I have done a little bit of research on what Airbnb defines as being COVID appropriate cleaning. I can only question myself that I don't know if they always get it done. I'm sorry, I haven't been in the house, but man, that turnaround time sometimes is very, very fast. That's all I can say. The second point that you commented that it's a horrific experience, I want to thank you for acknowledging that. To describe what we have gone through this last summer, and today I looked on their site and they're already booking next summer and the long weekends. You don't have the time for this. It is horrifying. It is unsettling. The change of people coming and going and coming and going twice a week, new people coming in. I can only describe it as a horror show, and this is my home that I'm living in. And I've spoken with some of you, and you've been very kind and understanding and listening to what we are experiencing. And I've talked to staff, and I'm sorry I don't know everybody, but staff that I've spoken to has been incredibly supportive and very patient. As far as coming to see my home, I appreciated your response, and I invite everyone over. The weather is fine. I would love to have every one of you, council, staff, come and see what I am living with, what I'm living next to. And the only caveat I would attach is that this is not summer weather. In the summer, it's a whole new game. And I welcome any one of you to come to my home, something that it's my home. It's my home. Now, I hope none of you live next to an Airbnb to understand what it is to have this next to you. It is an abomination. And sorry. Finally, you mentioned inspections. We have contacted the building inspector. It is my understanding that they are going to go and take a look at it. I talked to fire about when you notice their garbage bin is right next to our driveway. And I'm just waiting for someone to. But anyway, so when I called fire department about that, they said there was no violation of the garbage being where it is. As far as inspections into the home, I do not know. But yes, I do suspect there are building violations, but I'm not qualified to speak on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other questions of clarification? Councillor LeBlanc.
Thank you, Mayor, through the Mayor. For Mr. Walsh on this, I believe when we did the last bylaw, we talked about short-term accommodations. And one of the questions Councillor Bateman asked you was, would there be any grandfathering? And in that answer, I believe you said there'd be no grandfathering. Does that still stand?
Through the Mayor to Council, I put a question to our solicitor on that matter. I'm aware of a court decision from the Township of Pushlich, which I shared with our delegation over the phone, where the courts did call a short-term accommodation in that situation to still be a residential use. And on that basis, many municipalities have indeed grandfathered many STAs. But again, that was probably a 4-year-old decision, so it's worth revisiting.
But we'll see what comes out of the study and discussion points at some point in the very near future, I assume. Mr. Walsh?
That's correct. There's a pretty good response rate to the questionnaire that was posed on our website, and that's pretty much tallied now. There are a few late responses to fill in, but there's a pretty clear pattern forming with some of the
Thank you.
responses.
And Ms. Morrison, have you had an opportunity to answer those questions?
The survey?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. That's all I want to know. Councillor LeBlanc.
Just one more to the chair, and probably for Mr. Walsh, because he's going to be the one drafting this bylaw. Fortunately, I get somebody to clean my house twice a week. But before they come, they had to show a certification during COVID that they had taken certification and training to how to clean a premises correctly during this COVID stuff. So if we're going to have Airbnbs and we're going to require them to clean and to be clean between occupancy, are we going to require them to have a certification and training for cleaning during COVID or any other type of pandemic?
Mr. Walsh.
To the mayor, I made a note here based on the delegates' comments about Airbnb COVID sanitization standards. So I have a note here about that very point. So I think you can expect to see something in probably within the licensing bylaw. If passed by council, you'll see something related to COVID sanitization in it.
Any other questions for clarification? Councillor Tadman.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Walsh, again, our planning director. Is there no way that we can put it in our bylaw that we will not be grandfathering? Or are you still waiting on legal opinion on that?
Through the mayor, we're still looking for legal opinion on that. There was a number of responses who were very supportive of STAs as well, as you might expect. And so I think at the end of the day, we need to have something that's rigorous and solid. And there seems to be a lot of court decisions and LPAT decisions related to STAs. So we have probably lots to draw from and know where the bylaw will be solid and where it won't be.
Just to follow up to that. But my understanding of, and not just because Mayor Jo Morrison, if I can call you Mayor Jo, has brought it forward, it's an illegal business where it is. So how could they be grandfathered for something that's illegal? And I know we have legal here, but I don't know if, can I speak to legal about it or?
You can speak to me and I'll decide who I direct the question to.
Okay, could I give you a little push?
Sure. You usually do.
I know. So Mayor, could I speak to our legal rep here, Mr. Ewart, about that?
I guess I'd asked, is it Mr. Ewart you're speaking to with regard to this matter? Because I don't want to muddy those waters.
Yes, it was. And
Okay.
in all fairness, Mr. Ewart, I don't think he's probably had a chance to turn his mind to that with some of the other things that we've been dealing with. But I'll just say my inkling in response to your question is what's residential versus non-residential in terms of activities of a short-term accommodation. It all comes down, in my mind, to occupancy loads as defined under the Building Code Act. So if someone is using it as if it were a home, then it's a home. If someone's using it with a high level of occupancy and it's using it as a party house and are really packed into the house as if it were a hotel room, then that's probably not so much a residential use.
So can I?
Mr. Ewart, do you have any comment?
Of course he does. He likes.
Well, yeah, he gets paid by the hour.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just to follow up on Mr. Walsh's response, it is, I could certainly concur. The issue of short-term rental accommodations, it's funny, throughout the province they're known as different animals. The issue of legal non-conforming is captured by Section 34(9) of the Planning Act. And it's a simple question, but it's a very complex answer. It really does depend on what use is being made of the property at the time the bylaw comes into place. And that's what we refer to as the intervening bylaw. So if it's a residential use, as Mr. Walsh has referred to, and he did reference the Lynch case, which fortunately or unfortunately is the only Superior Court decision in Ontario dealing with this issue. LPAT's had to turn its mind to this particular issue, but what it boils down to is what use was being made at the time and whether it could be classified as rather tourist or commercial establishment. That's usually the breakdown of these operations. So I wish I could provide a more clear answer. I will provide a more formal legal opinion, but it really does turn on what was being used, or what the use was being made of the property at the time the bylaw was passed. And if it was legal in every other way, and that's the definition of legal non-conforming, then it may be grandfathered in. It's called, as referenced by Section 34(9) of the Act. And that's the determination. And as council can no doubt appreciate, these are site-by-site determinations, and it's one that's often challenging. We have one matter before the courts right now on a short-term rental accommodation, and we've tried to address it through other bylaws that we've done for other municipalities, and it's a challenge. And but it's something that turns on the facts and the situations of each case. So I wish that was a clearer definition for you, but it does determine. It's determinative of, again, the use, because in the Lynch case, what the court noted was that the residential use that was being made, it was the same, just perhaps 5 times greater. And so in that particular case, it wasn't the challenge to the court was not successful.
I think it's fair to say that council looks forward to seeing a short-term accommodation guidelines and bylaw coming forward. And, as you know, our expectation is that we'll strike a balance between protecting existing neighbors like Ms. Morrison and attracting tourism opportunities to the community. So there are lots of things to balance here, but I'm certainly hearing that, and so are you, that in certain neighborhoods, maybe they're more appropriate than in other neighborhoods. So if there's nothing else, I'm going, oh, Deputy Mayor, you have to wave.
Thank you. Just one question. I just wanted to make sure that we're going to have this bylaw in place well before the next season begins, so that obviously this isn't just an issue on Harbor Street. There's many areas in Brighton that we're having this issue. So I'm just wondering if maybe Mr. Walsh could give us a bit of an idea of what we're looking at time-wise.
Mr. Walsh, timeline?
Well, I think the work that's before us on this needs to be broken down into some steps and stages. So I think first it needs to be brought forward an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment, and then subsequent to that, probably a licensing bylaw. We've got a property standards bylaw amended. That's great. So I think, and that was brought forward already because there is no grandfathering to property standards bylaw. So next time Ms. Morrison has some difficulty with the neighboring property, she should be very quick to let us know, and we've now got a new tool with which to deal with that, and a very solid one, I think. So the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, I was hoping to bring that in December, but it really needs to be probably a polished draft before giving public notice, so people have a good look at it. So I really think it's going to be within the new year, but definitely before the spring season.
So the intent would be to have all of the amendments and the licensing bylaw in place before the tourist season, the proverbial tourist season for the municipality.
That's correct.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay.
Just the one other thing that I think needs to be brought up. You have been in touch with Laura Trent concerning the addition that's sitting very close to the shore, and the next high water, it'll be washing away.
Do I push this button?
No, you're already on. You're good.
Yes, we have submitted probably about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
The documentation. I don't know at this point if we call and follow up. I'm not too sure.
Okay.
I expect we
Mr.
will.
We have a
Walsh?
meeting this week, so.
Mr. Walsh, do you have comment on that?
Yes, Mayor. The bylaw enforcement official has been to the site, so there has been some action.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's in motion.
Okay, so bylaw has been there. Is it regarding the usage or building code? Or does it make?
Through the mayor, there was an addition put onto the home to connect to a boathouse, And so we're reviewing that addition to see whether it's in compliance or not, in particular the side yard. And there are some building code issues too about, is it a habitable space, some technical stuff.
And those are issues that our staff will deal with the existing owner.
Correct.
They don't need to be prosecuted in the light of the public.
Correct.
I think that's fair. So we'll let our staff deal with the existing owner on those law enforcement issues. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything further? So I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that council receive the delegation from Mary Jo Morrison regarding short-term accommodation regulations in the municipality of Brighton. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Morrison.
you to all of you. I do appreciate your patience, and I will be talking to everybody again.
I'm sure we look forward to it. Thank you very much. That takes us to our statutory public meeting this evening. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. The council move into the statutory public meeting November 9th, 2020 at 7:02 p.m. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. So we have one item in our statutory public meeting this evening. It's with regard to a consent application. And the purpose is with regard to consent applications B08 2020 and B09 2020. The owners are Matthew and Jennifer Corneef. The location is Part Lot 27, Concession 9, Part 2, Registered Plan 38R, 5056, 16398 Telephone Road. And Mr. Walsh, by what method and on what date was notice of these consent applications given?
Mayor, the notice of consent application was given by ordinary mail sent on October 23rd, 2020 to all property owners within 60 meters of the subject property. The application was also circulated to all appropriate agencies as required under the Planning Act, and a sign was posted on the property as was observed.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. And would you please explain the purpose and reason for these proposed consent applications and what they would accomplish?
The applications proposed to create 2 new lots and a retained piece. Severed lot B08 would have 60.96 meters frontage on Telephone Road with a lot area of 1.6 acres. And the second severed lot, file number B09 2020, would have 45 meters frontage and just be over 1 acre. The retained land has a frontage of 111 meters and 6.43 hectares. Several lot B08 2020 involves an existing home and garage.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. And do the owners have wish to make any comments this evening? Thank you. Are there persons present who have any questions or comments regarding the proposed consent applications? There are none noted. Are there any questions or comments regarding the proposed consents from members of council? Councillor Tadman?
Thank you, Mayor. Just that it certainly seems to have been well inspected all the way around between Northumberland County and Lower Trent, and the planner for this one has made the recommendations that I think covers us as a municipality. So I would support this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Does the owner wish to make any final comments? Thank you. Mr. Walsh, do you have any final comments?
No additional comments, Mayor.
Thank you. And does council wish to make a decision on these consents this evening? That being said, I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that this report regarding consent applications B08 2020 and B09 2020 as prepared by the municipal planning consultants be received. The Council of the Municipality of Brighton grant provisional consent to applications B08 2020 and B09 2020, subject to the following conditions. That cash in lieu of parkland in the amount of $1,000 be paid to the Municipality of Brighton. That the severed and retained lands be rezoned to the satisfaction of the Municipality of Brighton. That geospatial data with respect to the subject lands be submitted to the satisfaction of the municipality. That, if required, the applicant lay out and dedicate by deed to the municipality of Brighton a strip of land ensuring a minimum of 10 meters from the center line of Telephone Road along the frontage of the severed and retained portions, clear of encumbrances, buildings, structures, and fences to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works and Infrastructure. That the applicant applies for and obtains entrance permits and civic addresses for the severed lands, and such entrances are constructed, including clearance of any brush and encroachments that may be required to establish appropriate sight lines to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works and Infrastructure. That a plot of land is presented to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works and Infrastructure showing the location of buildings and wells to be constructed, as well as any buffer facilities as may be required in order to achieve compatibility between the proposed residential use with the pit to the west zoned extricative industrial and owned by the municipality of Brighton. Any plot of land as may be accepted by the municipality shall be registered against the retained lands in the form of an agreement under Section 53 of the Planning Act. That all taxes on each of the severed and retained lots be in compliance with the municipal requirements prior to the issuance of a certificate of official. And that 3 paper copies and a digital copy of a registrable survey for each of the severed lots and the appropriate deed transfer be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk within 1 year of the granting of consent. Is there any discussion? Councillor LeBlanc, don't ask me to repeat it.
No, I'm not going to repeat it. It's for, through you, Mayor, for Paul Walsh. When they get their severance, they're going to have to do an invasive species study. And they got 2 lots, and they usually cost about $6,000 a piece. Since the both lots are joined, is there any way they can do that study for both lots as one? So they only have the one $6,000 cost? Because that's usually what it costs, between $5,000 and $6,000.
Mr. Walsh?
Because Mayor, the study wasn't made as a condition of consent. I know the Lower Trent was recommending that in the EP area that maybe that be done because of its species at risk and a significant woodland. Those didn't come through as recommendations by DM Wells, the consultant who drafted the report. It may be something that's triggered at the time of the building permits if they get too close to the EP area. But to me, there's sufficient area on the severed and retained where they may not need those studies.
Yeah. I'm just looking for costs, trying to reduce costs on all the builders and stuff.
But I guess more direct to your question, that if such studies are required, yes, they can do it for the whole of the lands, both severed and the retained property.
Yeah. Because through you, Mayor, the reason I'm bringing this up, some other people that have zoned in rules have had to do 2 separate studies. So and basically the lots are adjoined. So to save on costs, instead of paying $12,000, they pay $6,000 for one if it's required. So I would look for staff to look at that.
But in this case, it's not a requirement of the consent. Thank you. Anything further? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council move out of the statutory public meeting November 9th, 2020 at 7:09 p.m. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. And now I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council resolve itself into closed session November 9th, 2020 at 7:10 p.m. pursuant to the Ontario Municipal Act 2001 as amended subsection 239(2)A, the security of the property of the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose regarding the Harbor Point Pond excess soil. Is there? Hang on, Paul. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. Mrs. Richardson, we'll need you to vacate the chamber. You are. I think he's planning to come back though, Candace. Yeah, okay. I wish I could tell you. I really don't know.